just quieten down, baby.
Per capita export value.
Libraries. Minister, are you embarrassed by your behavior today?
There's a lot of bleeding hearts around.
Do you have the fortitude or the gonads to stand up and come across here and say that to me, you son of a bitch?
Just watch me.
He certainly went too far, Mr. Speaker, when I saw him stick his tongue out.
Contemptuous disregard.
More than a slab of bacon talking here.
The disappointment you also feel is my responsibility.
I lost my temper. What is the nature of your thoughts?
The word was F-A-R-T.
Hello and welcome to Canadian Politics is Boring. My name is Reese and with me is Jesse. Hi, Jesse.
Hello, Reese. How are you doing?
And this is a special episode because we are being joined by journalist, although I did describe you as a serious journalist and you laughed at me, James Di Fiore from Black Bull Media. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Reese. How are you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing great. We're going to introduce the show like we always do with a little delicious ASMR.
Just to apologize, James, Jesse loves doing ASMR and insists on doing it. So let's just let him get out of the system.
I'd say about 95% of our listeners hate it, but 5% just really can't get enough. James, if you could join me, find a can or some paper or something that has a delightful tactile touch, and then crank up your microphone. There we go. Yeah. Here, just listen to me first. I'm going to crank up my mic and not talk because it'll be loud.
Oh, that was actually quite a satisfying sound, Jesse.
I can't beat that because mine doesn't fizz, but I can go.
You just shake the water. Just gargle it. That's pretty good.
That was James opening a water bottle. There we go. And crunching it between his fingers. Thank you so much for joining us on that ASMR journey, James. It was great.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
James,
you've now been in, the
hazed? Inducted.
Hazed. Very light hazing.
James, how would you describe yourself? I said serious journalist, but you pushed back on that earlier. So how would you describe yourself?
I don't know. I mean, I do. I'm a podcast host, and then I kind of landed in a niche or two while doing the show, and now I'm writing a book about the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. But I think I used to be a freelance journalist. I think now I'm more of an interviewer who finds himself, inside certain stories here and there, and I started investigating. The church that I'm writing a book about right now. But mostly what I like to do is just interview people. I interview people from like all sides of the political spectrum, rappers, comedians, things like that. So I would say more of an interviewer now.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Very cool, man. Are we going to skip the STD zone, Reese?
Oh, well, we don't normally do with guests. So we have a thing called the small talk dimension, which we call the STD. So we should really just share a story from our lives.
Your acronym game is on fire.
So,
we know.
we can do. I was, if you want to, Jesse, do you have any interesting stories that have nothing to do with the content?
I'm back in Halifax now, and I've just been kind of I've taken my laissez-faire sort of hippie bohemian lifestyle from Montreal with me, and I go to cafes and I get like, an annoyingly complicated order, like a decaf oat milk latte for here, please, with a splash of cinnamon. And I just sit and read my Kindle like a big fat jerk and just enjoy the day. And it's been lovely. It's been lovely being back so far, I got to tell you. So that's my
great
small talk.
Pleased to be back in Halifax.
Yeah.
Great. You should write to the mayor because he's looking for people.
Looking for people for what? Just to be in Halifax?
People who are happy.
He's looking for people that are happy. James, what have you been up to today?
James, have you got anything exciting?
I don't have a driver's license or a car, and I live in the middle of nowhere, and my house is situated in a forest. So I do the same thing every day, which is nothing. I just stay at home and I write and I eat.
Where do you live?
I live in a little town called Killaloe, which is in the Madawaska Valley. It's about 30 kilometers east of the eastern gates of Algonquin Park.
Wow. What province is that?
That is Ontario.
It's Ontario. Okay.
I didn't just like throw a dart and move to where It sounds like I did, but my ex.
I did.
My ex is from here. Yeah, you landed on Canada.
Your ex is from here, so you moved for your ex.
I moved because my ex wanted to move here, so I was like, yes.
Were you together when you moved?
Yes. Yeah, that
Okay,
was 2016.
This is a theory of mine that if you move for a significant other, 100% of the time it will very quickly stop and fall apart, and you'll be single very shortly soon.
No, 6 years is very quickly, but yeah.
It's recent then. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
oh,
Jesse,
not to poke like new wounds. Shit, man.
This sounds like more of an STD conversation.
Yeah.
Was that the small talk diaries?
I'm trying to think how I can have what stories I've got. I got some great news. Me and my wife have completed all of our Christmas shopping by November the 15th.
Amazing. I have yet to do any. Fuck.
But do you have your Christmas tree up like I do?
No. And we always go and cut one down, throw it in the back of the truck as a tradition.
I have a request, James.
Yeah, please.
Can you turn on the Christmas tree?
I can't because I don't put the lights on yet because I have a fucking cat that now lives in the tree, and I'm afraid he's gonna bite the wires. So literally, it looks dilapidated. I don't know if you can tell, but all the shit is all over the place, and there's like ornaments all over the house now. Because when I wake up, I'm just like, "What are you doing?" And it's
I wasn't gonna say anything. I was just gonna keep to myself. But okay, that's fine.
Yeah. We're not blind. Sure. We just can't figure out how to make the cat not go in the tree. Right?
So we're here to talk about your investigation in your book about the Plymouth Brethren. So Jesse, have you heard of them before?
Nothing. I have no idea what I'm doing here today, or who James is, or anything.
Great. Like, what a coincidence! We have no idea what you're doing here either.
Excellent. Right, yeah. And as the reviews tell me, I shouldn't be here at all.
Jesse, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you later, Jesse.
So the first time I heard of them was when I was back in the UK. My wife was...
Sorry for interrupting. Heard of what's the name again?
The Plymouth Brethren. The Plymouth Brethren. Sorry.
The Plymouth Brethren. The Plymouth Brethren.
Is that Plymouth Christian?
Yeah,
exactly.
The Plymouth Brethren Christian Church.
So I heard of them because my wife was actually teaching a kid who that was his religion, I guess. So his family were from the Plymouth Brethren, and it was the same as when you teach like a kid who was like a Jehovah's Witness, I guess. They weren't allowed to go to certain things in the school, and like that's the only reason I'd ever heard of it. But then when I listened to your podcast, James, I was...
So you're the one.
It was me. And I listened to the end as well. You'd be pleased to know. So when I listened to it, I was like, "Oh my god, this is!" I didn't realize. I thought it was kind of a harmless, kind of slightly. It existed, and I kind of didn't quite get why people were in it, but it was just kind of there. But the more you talked about it, the more it was like, oh wow, this is a kind of almost like a cult that is structured similar to Scientology, that is and is also very close to very powerful conservative figures in Canada, and has a lot of influence in Canadian politics that in a way that is almost totally invisible. Is that accurate?
I would say that's accurate. I would say it's first of all, you're born into this cult. You don't get tapped on the shoulder and then get invited in. You are literally born into it. There's 55,000 members roughly worldwide, mostly the Commonwealth countries, New Zealand, Australia, UK, Canada are the big ones. And yeah, they have connections into politics that are almost inexplicable. Like you don't know where the contacts really come from, but strangely, all of these politicians, especially conservative politicians, reward Plymouth Brethren-owned companies because they have an entire network of companies that are owned by the church, receiving sole source contracts worth billions of dollars. Like for the pandemic, for example, I think it was like 12 billion. We'll do it in Canadian dollars worldwide. Contracts for PPE during the pandemic, even though none of these companies have ever done any PPE work.
What does PPE work?
Like face masks,
like personal protection. Yeah,
personal protection work.
Yeah, in the pandemic, people were buying gloves and face masks.
and testers and things like that, like, and everything. And they just received all these sole source contracts without actually having any experience in that
church
market.
Was commissioned to make
the church,
stuff?
the companies that the church owns. So the Plymouth Brethren have what's called the UBT. I don't remember what that acronym stands for.
We can help them.
That recommends all of that. Sorry, that represents all of the companies that the Plymouth Brethren owns in all these different countries, and so they really are kind of a corporate religious, outfit. And they're really about money. Bruce Hales, who is the leader of this cult, lives in Australia, worth billions of dollars. It used to be he was like Tony Soprano, or whoever was the leader was like Tony Soprano. And all of these different countries, all of these families once a month would go to these meetings and put like 20% or whatever the tithing was of their pay in cash, in envelopes, and hand it into whoever was the elder in that locality. And then that money would be sent to wherever the leader happened to live, in this case, Bruce Hales. And he would just receive, like Tony Soprano, just envelopes of cash and all these different currencies. All these different people would fly to Australia with like whatever the number is before you have to declare it. They'd all have like $9,900 or whatever in their envelopes. And there'd be like 11 or 12 of them on the flight, and he would receive money like that. Now it's a little bit more sophisticated. They receive it in digital dollars.
So it's like a multi-level marketing scheme that you're born into.
It's more like a tithing. It's not really multi-level marketing because it's really just, you just have to give the money away. It's not like you get anything out of it.
Yeah.
Like you don't get hair products or anything.
I guess just your soul.
There's no Amway soap or nothing. You just get the money.
What is life like if you're in the cult? Like, how normal is your life in terms of?
I like that we're skipping straight from church to cult. I love that. That's because that's what it is.
Oh, it's definitely a cult
for sure.
I call it the Plymouth Brethren crazy cult normally when I'm on my show or whatever. But you know what? If you're a woman, it's awful. Women are definitely second class citizens. You cannot. When they go to their meetings, you cannot their meeting halls are situated in such where there's like a round sort of like couple of rows of seats for the men, and then literally the women get the bleachers. And they're not allowed to talk unless unless they get special permission. They wear bonnets. They have kids and they clean and they cook, and that's what they do.
Very
and the men
like 1950s traditional North American sort of housewife mentality.
It's kind of like it's sort of like that. It's almost Amish in a way. It's just you can't do nothing. You can wear bonnets. You can wear long skirts.
No skin.
You literally have to ask men permission to do anything.
Wow.
Yeah. You can't if anyone shows their ankles, people faint, that kind of stuff.
And they're always drunk, so check out the ankles on whatever. But they drink like crazy.
Oh, you're not kidding. They're actually always drunk. Holy shit.
The Johnny Walker is like their long lost cousin. They literally
do they make their own booze or
no? They like Johnny Walker.
Wow. Okay.
You can listen to Bruce Hales give like an audio sermon. And you can hear like the ice cubes.
Oh wow!
The Scotch glass as he drinks.
So
it's hilarious.
Literally like drinking is like a big part of their culture. Then it's like
it is a huge part of their culture. It's one of those things, and also there's a darkness to it though because
there usually is that much booze.
Well, abuse is like abuse of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is covered up. Abuse of women is tolerated. And then there's and this is the real parallel with Scientology. When you get excommunicated, they destroy you.
With Scientology, yeah.
And they completely. It's called the doctrine of separation. Where if you're a dad and you got a wife and 5 kids or something, and this was in the case of Richard Marsh, who was one of the main guys that I actually cover. That was once part of the cult. If you leave, you cannot contact your family ever again. And here's the weird part.
If you leave and your family doesn't.
Correct. And if the family, but what makes it easy for you never to see them again is that the family is like, oh, you're part of Satan now. We don't want to see you.
Oh, okay. So it's not that they stop you from seeing your family; they brainwash.
Oh, they do that too.
How?
Yeah. Well, they know. So the people that are excommunicated know that if they then reach out to try to like maintain lines of communication with their family that remains, then the church will punish that family.
They can't, because they're like, oh my God, if I do that, they're not going to give my kids any more whiskey.
Punish them how? I love challenging this shit.
But they're also great. But they're also greatly assisted by the fact that the family doesn't want to have anything to do with you anymore because you're gone.
So people are so brainwashed to fear the outside world and not follow in that doctrine.
And Jesse, to answer your question, they punish them by there are certain methods that they use. So each community is called a locality, and if your family has any standing, you will be. They almost do it like a caste system. You will be able to tell where your family stands based on like basically what row you sit in, for example, during the sermons and stuff. But if you leave and your family is like making noise about the fact that you want to see your father, for example, they will just put you at the bottom of the barrel. You will be shunned. It's called shutting up. It literally is called shutting up when they don't talk to you and you're not allowed to talk to like the elders or whatever. If you're still inside the locality, they just make your life hell and they make you an outcast inside the community.
I want to join this cult so bad. So bad. Just like,
I don't think that's most people's reaction.
No, I want to like, oh man, this is okay. Look, I have a theory.
I see. I'm more like, I want my wife to join this cult so bad.
I have this fun thought about crazy people, because I hear arguments all the time in podcasts and in reality and in drunken parties and whatnot. There's two people of different, like, you'll find someone with crazy beliefs and then some who logically try to argue against them. And logic, you cannot beat crazy with logic. You can't do it. The only way to beat crazy is with crazier. That's it.
So you're gonna join a cult and then somehow turn it up to 11.
Yes, baby. Yeah.
Then
start punching everyone in the face because that's what God's telling me to do. Can't you hear God telling you to punch everyone in the face? I can. Time to go face punching. Just.
Well, actually, that would be sacrilege because God only talks to Bruce Hales.
Okay.
So you'd have a problem.
Yeah, well, that's why.
And literally, Bruce Hales would be like, I was just talking to Jesus, and he says that our profit share this year can be amplified if we do that. Like, he'll say shit like that.
Like, go crazier. Go crazier. God told me my name is now Bruce. What's his name? Bruce Hales?
Bruce Hales.
Yeah. My name's Bruce Hales. The old Bruce Hales. That's Satan. He's lying to you.
He'll be gone in an hour.
Really? Like, be fun. Bring it on. What are they going to do?
So, and you mentioned about like there's been like abuse covered up. Was there in Saskatchewan there was an abuse scandal that was investigated by the RCMP as well?
Investigated air quotes. One of the first guests that I had on my show was a young woman named Cheryl Hope, and it took me a while to get her on the show because I had decided that since I started investigating, there was a bunch of young women and a couple young men who were abused by elders or even their parents or several people within the communities that and they kind of wanted to tell their stories. And I decided, and it was a little controversial at the time with others, but it wasn't with the victims. So that was good. That I didn't want them to come on the show unless they had filed a police report. And the reason why is because I was a little bit in the Me Too movement, while totally amazing in many ways, the one thing that I didn't like about it is that there was a anatomy of stories that the anatomy of many of the stories that would come out would be anonymous person accuses famous person of doing something wrong, no evidence except for what they said happened. And I'm sure many of those stories were true, but I just wanted the bar to be a little bit higher. So I wanted them they could totally come on the show if they had filed a police report. And so it took a while for Cheryl to do that, but she did it. And then she came on the show, and that kind of opened the door to everything. Like, she's, as far as I am concerned, she's a hero because she gave other people the courage to actually come forward. So Maple Creek, Saskatchewan, is one of these places where abuse happened to her, to many others, and just systematically covered up. They often they have what's called priestly visits.
What is it, sorry?
So it's called a priestly visit. It's not Jason and his family. Priestly.
Yeah.
So elders elders will come and so say someone hurls an accusation of abuse. towards somebody in the locality.
Okay.
They'll send 2 people, elders, to your house and basically try to talk you out of it, try to let you know that what you did was wrong, try to let you know that
like
forgiveness is part of it.
if I was abused and I spoke up about it, they're going to come to my house and tell me that was wrong of me to do.
Yeah, what's right for you to do is seek is to try to find forgiveness and to try to and try to keep it within closed doors.
I want to join this cult so bad.
Oh, just make it sound like you want to do awful things, Jetson.
No, I don't want to be one of the abusers. Jesus, Reese.
I know what'll happen though. Initially you'll go there. I'm doing this. I'm joining. Like when people do things ironically these days. Like, look at this. I'm wearing a grandmother's cardigan to be ironic. You join a cult ironically, and end up loving being in the cult.
Well, maybe because
it would have to be a Huxtable cardigan just to make it
yes,
of course.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I like the idea of I don't know. The more I learn about abuse it's horrifying, and because there really is layers of psychology where you become attached to your abuser and you feel you have no other option but to stay and do what they tell you, and it's really awful. And as a much smaller minor example is jobs, 9 to 5 minimum wage jobs. A lot of the employees take abuse from their superiors, their bosses, because they believe they don't have any other options, so they have to take it. So for a long time I really want to find a job with a shitty boss and join it as an employee, be a shitty employee, have them abuse me, and then just kind of fucking I just want to that's just kind of
get a minimum wage job just to fuck up the workplace.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Cool.
Exactly.
Okay. It's like a kind of form of activism.
And show the other employees you can stand up for yourself. You don't have to take this fucking bullshit from this puny little man. Sorry, I'm on a tangent. I'm going on I do that. I'm sorry, James.
No, it's not, and that's it. But it is. It's similar to Jehovah's Witness stories and Catholic stories, people in power abusing kids and then it being systematically covered up. And that's basically it's not a new story. It's a different way of telling, or it's a different way of executing the sort of cover up. It's just but you had religion and abuse, and a cover up of some place is going to happen.
Here's
right?
this is my question: the people that come to the houses to convince the abusees of.
Yes, they are drunk.
Okay.
I'm not kidding.
I wasn't going to ask that, but that's amazing.
They turn up half cut and they bring another bottle with them.
You said they're trying to.
The girls tell the stories about how they can smell the rye on their breath as they're being told,
wow.
to try to find forgiveness.
So my question is: the people who come to their house, are they aware that abuse has actually happened? Are they brainwashed into believing it hasn't happened, and that listen, stop talking about this thing that clearly didn't happen, sort of thing? Where's their mentality at? Because if they're coming and they clearly know abuse happened and they're trying to cover it up while drunk, that's a new special level of shittiness.
I believe they do know most of the time. I know that in one case, it was a woman who wanted to leave her husband who was abusive, and she secretly recorded the visit, and they did know. And they're he's trying to seek help and he's going the right way about it by turning to God.
Wow.
And they're like, you should do the same thing.
Fucking hell.
So with obviously there's a lot. What other, I guess, crimes have you kind of, from the people, the survivors you've spoken to, and from your own research, what other crimes have you kind of seen being committed or are being committed?
And James is having a cough.
I have a cough, and I keep on muting.
That's right.
It's very entertaining. If you're dear listener, if
Yeah.
you're watching our YouTube feed, you can see James going into a silent coughing fit every 30 seconds.
Yeah. At least I'm professional enough to know to mute. I used to not.
I've been burping the whole time, and I've been muting myself. So
Yeah, I might have to disappear to get a glass of water.
That's totally fine.
No, the types of abuse are what I mean. In the case of Cheryl Hope, because she's already talked about it, she was literally passed around to different adults.
Jesus
to be
Christ.
abused, and it was really bad. And she was 4, 5, 6, and she was
Oh
drugged.
my God! What?
Jesus Christ.
And these people are still walking around that community. So when I went like this with the RCMP investigation, is because they haven't really done anything, right? They haven't made an arrest, right?
There's no real will, I guess, for people to kind of go dive into.
And is there ever I have to be careful how I word this, but they're in this community. there is a woman who did an entire litany of abuses against her kids, and the OPP investigated by interviewing the kids for 10 minutes and then immediately closed the investigation.
Amazing.
So there's often not an appetite among law enforcement to pursue these cases, especially in rural communities.
So my next thought would be going towards, why so much abuse? Like, where is it stemming from? That's
alcohol and religion.
No, I mean, that makes sense, but I mean, like, it's.
I think if you find yourself in a place where you can probably get away with something, and you have that.
I don't know. I don't think that most people would genuinely, like. I don't know. I think human beings don't gravitate towards, being horrifying people if they can get away with it. Like,
it sounds like we've got multiple generations of people trapped in a cycle of trauma, like abuse and trauma.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
And, that's a really good point, Reese, because a lot of the people that I interviewed that were victims, they have this really interesting and for me kind of like, wow, I can't believe that you feel that way of looking at their perpetrator as a victim as well. So there's like a little sliver of forgiveness or understanding as why they would end up abusing you, because they know that person was abused as well. And so they have a very interesting, logical, right, way of looking at what has happened. And the tendency for forgiveness is much higher in a community like that than it would be outside a community.
Because they get them empathy, because they know that they probably went through the same shit when they were a kid or whatever. They saw their dad do the same thing to their dad, and everything else is horrible. But like they're all in a cycle. Like
it's cyclical in nature. Yeah.
And in terms of like how the community is structured. One thing I did hear you talk about before, a guest on the show, I think we're talking about the fact that they all move together, don't they? If the community moves, do they like in terms of real estate, they move like as a block.
Yeah, they do. That I don't know. It's funny. I haven't really covered much of that, but I have heard of, and they do that often for real estate. Because the market is high, they're like, let's sell all right now and then use that money and then start anew somewhere else. And they do, because each locality is only like, it's not like 20,000 people in a locality. It's like 300, 400, or 500.
I gotta say, Reese, this is just a wonderful, sobering episode to throw right in the middle of the Wafaka season. If anyone's having too much of fun time,
it's all about balance, Jesse. Yeah. It's all about balance.
Can you guys excuse me for 1 second while I get a glass of water?
Go for it. Well, James, go for a glass of water. Jesse, how do you feel about this cult slash
horrifying? Jesus, man. We wanted to have regular fun episodes for our audience during Wafakak who didn't want to join Wafakak. And this is what we're giving them during the holiday season? Fucking hell, man.
Well, here's my theory.
It's fascinating, but come on.
The people who don't like Wafakak are the serious types who take themselves seriously.
Oh, yes.
So we've got to,
and you know who you are.
You know who you are. So if you
we love you. We're glad you're here, but come on, that's fine.
If you can't join in the merriment of Wafakak, then you're going to get more serious stuff.
The Plymouth Brethren, we put the fuck in Wafakak.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, Reese was just saying that the people who don't enjoy Wafakak are probably much more serious in nature and would enjoy something like this during the holiday season.
They want to hear harrowing stories of abuse. That's just their taste.
So. All right, let's crank it up to 11. How can we make this story even worse? What else you got for us, James?
I want to. I mean, what I want to do is shift on to talking about the influence. Now we've kind of you've told us a bit about the organization, like the influence they have politically, but is there anything people need to know before we move on to that, before we move on from talking about?
Well, you asked earlier about how they have the political connections. I only know how to answer that in Canadian terms, and the connecting tissue between the Plymouth Brethren and the companies that they own and the governments, the Conservative provincial governments, and the when Stephen Harper was in power, the Conservative Party of Canada, is a man named Gerald Chapur.
Don't know.
Gerald Chapur is a lawyer. He used to be Prime Minister Stephen Harper's lawyer. He was also the General Counsel of the Conservative Party of Canada, and he is the General Counsel of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. So
he's the what?
Through him,
what was that last?
The General Counsel, the lawyer of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, and currently still is.
Is he also a member?
No.
Okay.
So he's but he's a religious nut. I think he's a Seventh-day Adventist or something like that. And he is, so theoretically, although I don't have evidence to sort of show this specifically because I don't think it technically exists, but it's easy to imagine that if the Plymouth Brethren or one of their own companies wanted a PPE contract, for example, during the pandemic, that would be the conduit. That Gerald Shapur would contact, at the time, Jason Kenney, Premier of Alberta, and say, "Hey, you got contracts coming up." Yeah, and so it would be nice if these companies got it. And then and Pierre Poilievre has contacts with the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church as well. Stephen Harper, when he was sworn in 2006, brought his own Bible to be sworn in on, and it was a Plymouth Brethren Bible.
So is he kind of a member, or is he just close to them, or is it
close to them? Close to
Harper.
In 2011, during his inauguration speech, the entire front row were all Plymouth Brethren elders.
Amazing.
So these are the political kind of like contacts and reasons why they receive so much. And there's also social conservative reasons why the Plymouth Brethren wanted to be close to the Conservative Party of Canada. At the time, gay marriage was not something that the Conservatives wanted. Abortion is always a hot topic among the Conservative base, no matter where you are in Canada. Right. And so they sort of felt that the Conservative Party represented the issues that mattered to them. And then, of course, the quid pro quo would be the fat contracts that they would receive.
Right. This has got to extend back like tens of decades upon decades. It has to. There's no way that one lawyer has tied together all the political parties and all of the church. This has got to stem back generations of power, and it's about money and power. It's always about money and power. And it sounds like the church has a lot of money and the politics have a lot of power, and the two probably just want to play be in bed together a lot.
It's hard to tell how far it goes back. Mostly because, you look at Brian Mulroney's Conservatives or Joe Clark, and they're, it actually, the farther back you go, the more moderate the Conservatives used to be.
Oh, I remember.
So I don't think,
was it that they were more like associated with like the Reform Party, and when they merged, maybe that they got more, because it seems to be like the Reform and the PCs have become something much more like the Reform Party, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even know why the PC party in Ontario is still called the PC party. They think the word progressive is like, not part of their overall identity, right? So in
Nova Scotia, the PCs came to power by saying they were going to spend more on healthcare. That's how they.
No! In Nova Scotia, it's so strange. Like the Liberals act like Conservatives, and the Conservatives act like Liberals. It's so everyone says this only in this province. It's really fucking
really
weird.
Strange.
It's so strange. It's really it's like they're both wolves in sheep's clothing, just pretending to be the other. It's very, very bizarre.
That is bizarre.
It's so.
It doesn't sound like that in Ontario, though.
No. In BC, it's like the Liberals are exactly like the Conservatives in BC.
Oh wow!
Like there's not much difference between the two. They behave the same. And then the NDP is the only one that's really on the left.
Yeah. So like with that influence, like, do you think that like on a provincial level and then on a federal level, so like say, like, obviously if you look at polls right now, Poilievre is so far ahead with Trudeau, and who knows with like how campaigns go, and Trudeau's such a good campaigner, like could he club out or whatever happened. But say there was an election and Poilievre was prime minister, do you think that would how do you think that would affect the Plymouth Brethren? Do you think like they would be kind of, from their point of view, they'd be cashing in a bunch of political capital they've been working hard on gaining?
Yeah, I do. They have they've always had also a gift that they give conservative parties in the form of like boiler room telemarketing or letter writing campaigns and all this kind of stuff, or get out the vote campaigns that they never declare. I've talked to a couple people that have been part of these boiler room operations where they basically are campaigning, but they're not part of the finance part of the campaign. So it's like free volunteer work.
That's amazing.
And so and then they get rewarded. I think they would get rewarded with some sort of contract. Most of what they do is like second tier building. So they don't build the houses, but they might build the roofs or the cabinetry inside the houses. They do a lot of work where they build like desks and shelving stuff for schools. And they get a lot of these types of contracts. So I would fully expect them to benefit somehow.
Wow.
If Poilievre wins. And I think Poilievre is going to win.
That's
I think
terrifying, but not surprising.
People keep on asking why doesn't Trudeau resign? And there's a really easy answer for that. And it's that, so let's just say for argument's sake that the two best candidates that
Hold on, sorry, I want to rewind. Resign. People are saying, why doesn't he resign?
Yeah.
Why would I don't follow, like, seriously, I don't know what's
Jesse
going on.
doesn't look at Jesse lives in a cave and he puts his hands over his eyes and his ears are stuffed with, I don't know.
Okay, my parents years ago would be they'd wake up first thing in the morning, they'd turn on TV and they'd watch Trump from morning till night. Maybe not, no, that's an exaggeration, but they'd watch Trump in the news. They'd find out what's going on every day. And they were filled with so much dread and so much anxiety constantly. I refuse to look at the news. If anything really big is going to happen, I will find out about it. Come on,
I'll text Jesse and go, you probably need to know about this one, Jesse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Don't
but
pack a
otherwise,
bag.
like I kind of live a fairly like stress-free life as far as that's concerned about what's going on. Like it's because like
ignorance is bliss.
It really is, man. There's nothing I can do unless I want to live the life of like what's the word? I'm like not a protester. What's someone who's like engaged in that sort of an activist, yes, certainly, which is great. And those sort of roles are really important in society. And if I want to live the life of a constant, nonstop activist, then maybe I can make some change. But unless I'm willing to make that sacrifice, I'm just going to be causing undue stress to myself by watching the news constantly. So I know
you just got us another 1-star review, Jesse.
I really did. Yeah.
Why is Jesse on the show?
but like I think like the thing. So Jesse, basically, more and more people have been calling for Trudeau to resign. Some people within the Liberal Party, but James,
so why?
To your point, why do you think?
This happens all the time in Canadian politics because there's no like term limits right up here, but a lot of the voting public have like regime fatigue. But Trudeau, the same thing happened to Harper, and so what happens is that and Reese, you're right. Like there's many people in the Liberal caucus that don't think that they can win with Trudeau at the helm. Now the problem is, and this is where I was going, is that let's just say for argument's sake that Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney or whatever would be the two candidates that would have the most viable chance of winning the next election. It's a losing election for them to get involved in because the general idea among the public is that there is a Liberal Party fatigue. So they don't want to waste their chances of becoming prime minister in an election that looks like it will just go to the other side. Remember Kathleen Wynne in Ontario?
No.
If she had resigned, Kathleen Wynne was polling at like literally her polling numbers was like negative 12%. Like she was just not going to win. There was no way. So if she had resigned and a really good candidate went in her place, it would have been a wasted election for that candidate because they probably weren't going to win anyways. And that's what it is right now.
Okay.
That's one of the main reasons why many Liberals who don't think they're going to win still don't want Trudeau to resign, because if they want to put a viable candidate like Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney in, that will be wasted for them.
Right.
And then they'll probably resign as leader instead of keep going until the next
So I've
election.
never heard of that term before, campaign fatigue, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's literally just 1984. It's every side gets its turn eventually. You know, someone's in like, or to quote The Dark Knight, which I love, is you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Jesse tries to crowbar that into every episode.
It's a great quote, man.
Get it tattooed on your face or something then, Jesse.
It's a great quote, you know.
I honestly think as well, like we did an episode on Kim Campbell, who was obviously like, you know,
That's a great example.
First and only female prime minister, and she was, even though she was like super popular in all the polls, still it was the party, I guess. But
she was handed the reins of a losing battle.
Right.
So the tide was
like
in her favor.
Looks like Pierre Poilievre is going to be prime minister, not because he's the best candidate, but because people are just tired of the Liberals and he's the only other option, which is
well.
fun.
He's also doing something. He's also doing something that we haven't seen before, which is usually what happens when. With the Conservatives, when they run for leadership, they tend to like drift to the right to try to get all the support from the base, and then when it comes to like being the leader, they will then shift to the center. He's not doing that.
No,
he's staying on the right, and I think he's. Listen, I don't like it, but I think that it's smart. I think he read the ether and was like, if I go to the middle, I'm going to end up like O'Toole, and no one's going to like me anymore by the time an election rolls around. But if I stay on the right, all the active people right now in this country are on the right. And we people don't like it, but people are going to have to like suck it up and try to figure out what to do about it if you're a liberal or an NDP, because the convoy protests, you may not have liked it, but it activated a bunch of people that were not active before that, and they vote.
Right.
And so it is a growing contingent of voting citizens that are now supporting these like hard right politicians. And I don't think the liberals have an answer for that yet. It's not pronouns. I'll tell you that much. Like it's not.
It's time. It's. I mean, if you step back and you look at how voting works over decades, it's all cyclical. This goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And voting is not logical. Voting is emotional. We just have to wait until the right does shit so bad that it fucking pisses off the left enough that they want to get voting, and they'll vote in the liberals next election. And then the liberals fuck up so bad that the right wants to vote, and it's just back and it's a ping pong game.
But the liberals have the left have to learn in Canada, and I have to be careful how I say this because I don't want you guys to get letters. Don't have that guy back. But they really have to drop the stuff that really isn't important to the largest swath of Canadians. Like I joked about pronouns, but in a way I'm not joking. Like that stuff is like, it's not that you shouldn't care or that you shouldn't agree with certain things, whatever. Just like leave it alone. I remember I think it was I can't remember what interview I was watching, but it was actually Bernie Sanders talking about some of this stuff about how when Hillary Clinton was campaigning. Oh no. Who was that guy? The Van Jones. He was like the environmental czar for the Obama administration. Okay. Anyways, he's a CNN analyst now. Anyways, he was talking about how he went to go visit in the Midwest a family that was voting Republican for generations and generations. And it was when Trump beat Clinton. And he was asking a family, like, what would ever, like, why didn't you vote Democrat? And they said, well, listen, we've had senators come here where we have lost factory jobs, and unemployment in this area has been really high for generation after generation. And they came here, and the first thing that they were talking about was pronouns. And he was like, it didn't crack the top 10 of things that were important to us. Jobs were important to us, but the left really clung to this like social issue kind of platform for so long, and in a way we still do it, that you lose sight of what is important to like families, which is like economics and healthcare and money and things like that. And I think the left don't have an answer out of how to outdo themselves when it comes to focusing on things that don't matter to a larger swath of Canadians. Yeah. I think they need to learn how to do that.
It's funny when it's like it's a business. It's in a sense like, how do we get more votes? How do we get more money to get more votes? What are people who are currently voting? What do they care about? That's really all it is. And that changes. It does go back and forth. I see what you're saying. And like, while these things are important and they do need to be addressed, perhaps it's a timing issue.
Well, that's the thing, is like people can't afford to heat their homes or eat. Well, you have to choose. In the UK, there's a term, eating or eating. You choose. What are we going to do this week? Heat the house or eat food? And like, I think that when people are on that level, as much as they aspire to help build a more inclusive, friendly society, they might be hungry or cold. And genuinely worried about having a roof over their heads, or am I going to have to sleep in a car next week? And it is like, for me, I grew up in like an area where the left-wing tradition came from people in very dangerous coal mining jobs, and the left came because they wanted to. My grandfather left school when he was 14. He wanted to be educated, so that they used to club their money together to fund libraries, and then that the health system in the UK came from a model that was set up by coal miners in that community too. And to me, that is that's what the left-wing politics has always been formed in my head. It's about people who don't have much working together to kind of go, well, how can we improve our lives?
Labor, wages.
Exactly. Like but now when people talk about left, like they go, oh, you know, it's because you said like it's the pronouns debate. There you go. And they go, yeah, but there's no one's talking about the actual core original stuff that the left is supposed to be about, or is not even not even associated anymore. Like.
And look at the opportunity that the left has right now to talk about those things. Like our wages should be like, listen, if you go by inflation and by the profits that are being made by things like grocery companies and things like that, wages should be like $30 an hour.
Easily.
Really, it should be.
Yeah.
You know, and look at the cost of living right now. Like I can't get over what rent is like in like just the community that I grew up in, Whitby. It's like for a bachelor apartment, it's like $2,600.
Jesus,
like, are you fucking?
Are you
kidding
serious?
Me? Like, yeah. Listen, real estate on its own needs a total overhaul.
From what I hear, it will give it a few years.
I can't believe that in an area that's entirely run by banks, things are so expensive. Like people don't understand. Homeowners don't own their homes; banks do, right? And of course, banks want everything to go up and up forever. But you know, it doesn't match what's happening in the rest of the world, the rest of the country, and it's just there's such an uneven thing right now happening when it comes to real estate and rent and cost of living. The left have such an opportunity to speak to those issues, and they just never do because they're worried about assuming the gender of the person that owns the home. Like you know, you need to like focus on better things.
I do think as well, like Poilievre's ideologies don't have any answers to any of those problems. It's just that right now he's the alternative, I guess, and there's nothing about his politics or policies he would bring in that would necessarily improve any of that.
But he's very effective at pointing out how Trudeau only focuses often.
Exactly.
Especially the way that Trudeau frames those issues at basically ostracizing all the people that vote for Poilievre.
I think when we should make a more, we should, how do I put this? Really kind of specify when we talk about the right and the left. I think when Reese and I talk about the right, we're talking about the extreme right. And I get the feeling, James, that when you talk about the left, you're talking about the extreme left.
I am usually,
and both of those parties bother the shit out of me, honestly. Anyone that's
the extreme left. The extreme left is often represented by mainstream stuff right now, though. You know, like whenever, and I'm just going to use this as a quick example. Dean Blundell is going to like roll his eyes when I say this if he watches this, but I think the mainstream sometimes carries the flag for the extreme left. For an example, I saw a CBC News kids tweet like a year ago, and it was like, tonight we talk about J.K. Rowling's transphobia, and I was like, holy fuck. Really? Like we're doing that because
the media is about ratings, and the media wants more. And like, so if the media talks about something that is affecting everybody equally, such as the economy or housing crisis, then nobody's really going to be like, what would you like? Everybody knows. But if you want ratings, you talk about something that's emotional.
You're talking about clickbait. I guess
exactly. And so you get a group of people who have an emotional issue that is, you know, worthy of talking about that other people aren't affected by. Then there's going to be a disconnect, and suddenly there's going to be an emotional problem, which brings in ratings. So that's why my theory as to why they talk about it. But like the things that you're talking about, James, these are important topics that need to be addressed, but the timing is off. If you're trying to tell someone, you know, about about a socioeconomic problem, about healthcare, about education, but that person is currently ablaze on fire with gasoline being poured on them. They have other issues that they want to address in that very moment, you know? So like, it can be fun to make fun of these issues, but the reality is they are important. It's just the timing's all off. The timing is off, you know? Yes, we need to talk about gender issues. Yes, we need to talk about pronouns, but like to the audience who's going to listen in the right moment, you know, and if people are like currently on fire or currently starving and are looking to their leaders for those solutions, then certain topics should be brought up first before bringing up other also very important topics. But I think it's about timing, not about like what is important and what isn't important.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, I don't know how important some of these topics are. I think that
they're important to the people who think they're important. You know, that doesn't mean that they're universally important.
You say that about anything.
You can't. Yes, and that's kind of what a tribal mentality is. We want other people.
Do you remember?
It's about.
Someone put out a billboard in BC that said, "I love J.K. Rowling," and people had fucking like conniption fits.
Sure. Like, I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's about empathy. You know, it's not about changing policy as much as it is like, you know, we have we just want people to understand. People mostly just want other people to understand what they're going through and hear it. They don't need to follow along their lifestyles, or be like them. I think people just need to develop more empathy and more listening skills, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, but also I agree with that. I think that the thing with that billboard sounds like they knew exactly what they were doing. It was
that was
it's rage farming, essentially.
Rage farming.
It's rage farming.
But it was kind of. I thought it actually proved a good point, because I'll give you an example. Nate Erskine Smith. He's a guy who's running for the Liberal leadership for the provincial Liberals right now in Ontario. I had him on my show once, and I asked him right at the end of the show, and I'm like, "Do you think J.K. Rowling's transphobic?" And he said, "Well, I'm not really sure what it was that she said, but I'm positive she's transphobic." And I'm like, and I think that's why that billboard was funny to me, because I think a lot of people were, "Oh my God, why was she transphobic?" I don't know, but I was told that she
people
is.
they love it.
But also as well, I think people people feel slightly traumatized when they fall in love with a story and some art that somebody's created, and then they find there's a reason not to like them, or people tell them there's a reason not to like them, or wherever people fall on there. It's like Tommy Douglas, the guy who helped create healthcare in Canada, used to love eugenics.
That's right.
And he changed his mind on it because he went to Nazi Germany and was like, "This is bad." But I think that sometimes I think you could still appreciate someone's art on the merit of the art. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. My wife likes the Harry Potter books. My kids love them. My son was so excited because he's in the Harry Potter club at school. But I think what I don't like is the fact that if people imply that you can't like some stuff that you like based on pure merit. I think rather than you can separate sometimes. I mean, Hitler was shit at painting, but I think there's probably some people out there like Hitler paintings.
He's also vegetarian. So if any vegetarians out there you want to know what they have in common with Hitler,
I think lovers of Alsatian dogs.
Reese with J.K. Rowling, I think it's the divisional mentality of you're either with me or you're against me. It's nobody really wants to have discussions with people they disagree with anymore. They want to label and move on. They want to know what you believe so that they can label you and then move on to the next person and find out what they believe. And it's it's taxing and it's emotionally draining for most people. And it would be actually more beneficial if you sat and listened to people you disagreed with. You don't have to believe what they believe at the end of that conversation. You do not have to agree with that person at the end of that conversation. You do not have to come across as right at the end of that conversation. You just have to learn to listen. That's it. And it's so fucking hard. And with the J.K. Rowling thing, I don't know what she said. I didn't look into it. I didn't care. People want her to suffer and not benefit from her art because of her being a horrible person. And let's just assume she is, for the sake of argument, because I don't know one way or another. I've heard enough that she is, so I'm going to assume that she is transphobic. So let's just assume that she's transphobic, and people want to stop everybody else from buying Harry Potter merchandise and books and going to the theme parks so that she won't benefit anymore. I got to tell you right now, if J.K. Rowling's income stopped entirely tomorrow, 100%, she would still be a billionaire. Okay, that's never going to change. Okay, if you like this imaginary magical world and it brings you joy, let it bring you joy.
It's also, but I agree with all of that, and also one of the not funny things, but ironies of all this is that because it is really the hard left that really hate her. There's no focus being put on the fact that she is legit the most abused woman online on the planet. Violence, death threats, all that stuff, which the far left just completely turned a blind eye to because she had an opinion that wasn't even awful. It's just that we're so polarized, is that you have to be all on the activist side of either left or right, and she's somewhere in the middle, and so therefore she's completely ostracized by the left.
I just realized, I just had an epiphany that when people talk about the far left, I have a totally different image in my head from what you two are talking about.
What do you mean?
For me, I was thinking hard far left, Joseph Stalin. That's where my head.
Joseph Stalin is far left.
He wouldn't be on Twitter sending death threats to J.K. Rowling.
He wouldn't be. Not the far left, man.
He would kill.
You just would have sent it to a gulag.
He'd be the farthest right you could possibly imagine.
The furthest left.
Oh no,
no, he was authoritarian, but he was I think far left is communism. But in my head, I was like, I don't quite know where. In my head, like if I look at it,
Hitler. I think Jesse, you're getting confused maybe between fascism and communism. But Hitler was far right.
Okay,
Joseph Stalin was far left. Both were authoritarian. But,
I think I can. I mean, I've been saying this for a while on our show about the differences. My opinion, my theory, the differences between the left and the right, not the far right and the far left, but just the left and the right, and how we need both. We need both mentalities. We can't cram both of our mentalities into our own brains, and we will never convince the right to be the left, and we can't convince the left to be right. We need both to exist at the same time, and we need to be more. We need to habitable. We need to have what's the word I'm looking for? We need to learn to live together because. The right is about, so, like the whole put your air mask on first before helping others, right? Make sure that you are safe, make sure that you are healthy, make sure that you are happy. And then once you are in that position, then you can help your family, then you can help your neighbors, then you can help your neighborhood. And the left are the opposite mentality, which is focus on your neighbors first, focus on your families first, focus on other people first before your own needs, which has its own merits. And together we can make a fully functioning human being. And on both sides of the extremes of that, people take these things and run with it to the insanity that we've heard about so far, so much. So like, take care of yourself first. That means a good job, make sure I've got a house to live in and stuff. And the extreme right says like, it's nothing but jobs. Literally nothing else matters. I want my tax lowered. I want my income increased. I want my houses to be perfect. I want my family to be perfect. Everything. Fuck everybody else. And then the extreme left is make sure that all these social houses and social programs are taken care of first, to a point where I won't listen to what you have to say unless you believe me, and I'm going to neglect my own personal safety, my own personal sanity, my own personal health to make sure everybody else is okay. Both extremes are insane, okay, and it's unhealthy.
If fascists come to power, they won't last long, fundamentally, because and the same with like the far left as well, or communism, is that if you see the world through ideological lenses, you don't see the world for as it is. You're trying to police a very messy society with ideas, and that's not often the reality. So, like, for instance, if you were a fascist and you were running a country, you would be governing that country based on prejudice, which means you would underestimate people because you're prejudiced against a certain group of people. You assume they're never going to rise up and beat you because they're not capable of it on a genetic level. And then that's not true. So they're obviously, you're going to underestimate things and mess things up. So I think you need that balance. You need those people in the middle, definitely. But I guess that's the thing I find weird though, is that
we don't just need people in the middle. We need people on the right and the left to understand that we will not agree with the other side, but we need them to be there. We need them to be there to know how not to behave.
Yeah, exactly. You need the naughty kid in class to go. Don't be like that.
No, I'm not talking about the extremes.
Yeah, you're going to miss out on cake.
I'm not talking about the extremes. I'm talking about just the regular right and the regular left. The extremes.
I think we need to learn how to be politically ambidextrous.
Yeah.
As if the moment calls for it.
Sure.
Like there are some moments. A lot of people don't like to say this or think about this or believe this, but sometimes there's a conservative solution to a problem.
Of course,
sometimes there's a progressive solution to a problem. It's just that's the way life is.
You know what? I'm going to backtrack. I like that. I like that answer quite a bit, actually. And instead of me just saying that we're never going to believe what the other side believes, whatever side we reside on, I agree. I think that's a really smart answer. We need to be politically ambidextrous. We need to learn to be politically ambidextrous because you're right. You're absolutely right.
I'd say Canada is way more politically ambidextrous than the UK, which is still the UK is very tribal in how people vote. But I'd say Canadians seem to be a bit more flexible.
The UK have had like 17 prime ministers in the last 2 months.
all from the Tory party. Like this, without an election, they just keep cycling through new leaders.
Oh, and by the way, the one that's in there now, I forget his name.
Rishi Sunak.
He's got deep political ties to the Plymouth Brethren.
Nice. I was just going to to bring us back to the Plymouth Brethren.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about the right and left for half an hour.
Are they in the Harry Potter books as well?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry about that.
So with your book, then, what are you hoping to like when is your book coming out, and what are you hoping to? What
I
kind
don't
of
know when it's
impact you
coming out
want
yet.
with it?
It's not done yet. My deadline was like months ago, but but it's still but it's still I don't know how to end it yet because there's still a couple of things that sort of are sort of unfolding that I can't really talk about. But I don't know what I'm hoping for. I wanted to do a book that sort of examined the political ties in all of the Commonwealth countries because I thought, first of all, I thought I could sell more books. Second of all, I thought that it was important to sort of show just how politically connected this group was. And we are going to do that to a certain extent. But I want to make it like you were saying at the beginning, that it's not a household name in Canada. It probably is only a household name in like New Zealand and Australia, a little bit in the UK, but not in Canada. And I think the goal would be to sort of, especially for Canada, because that's where I live and I'm Canadian, to sort of show, listen, there's a group that you've never heard of that is getting billions of dollars just for being the group that they are. And holy crap, like, listen, one of the good things of the social issue focused left is that I think, and the mainstream media too, is that I think that they would be really, really angry to find out that a group that abuses women, a group that like covers up sex abuse of children, are receiving billions of dollars in government contracts.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I think that should be the headline, and that should inflame people. But just like like we have tried to get mainstream outlets to look at this, and they just won't. And the reason why is they say they're really litigious. And when they say really litigious, that tells me that Gerald Shapoor called the lawyers of CTV or Global or CBC and talked to the lawyers there. And those lawyers know who Gerald Shapoor is. And they probably look at him like he's like really powerful. And Gerald was like, you don't want to do this. And they were like, okay. Like I think it's probably as simple as that. So there needs to be a sort of day of reckoning for this group that needs to come from a mainstream outlet that has the stones to actually see it through, right? And I don't know if one such yet, but hopefully sometime.
I've seen Canada Land articles, but I haven't seen CBC or CTV articles.
Well, did you watch the podcast or listen to the podcast Ratfucker?
No.
It's a great name.
It's about ex-political dark arts operative David Wallace, who I've had on my show many times, and it's a 3-4 part series or whatever. Anyways, to be perfectly honest, Jesse Brown lifted a lot of that work from Blackballed from my podcast, right, and created this podcast called Ratfucker, and so it all kind of came
really
down
hard to advertise on other shows.
Yeah, really. Am I allowed to swear on this show?
Of course.
Yeah.
Acast recommends Ratfucker.
Exactly.
So David Wallace, as a political operative, was hired by the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church through Gerald Shapoor to find Richard Marsh, who was a whistleblower, former part of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church in the UK, who whistle blew on a company that was supposed to make factory masks, environmentally friendly or something like that. They took the money. They didn't actually do it. And so he blew the whistle. And he fled to Canada, literally had to flee. And the Plymouth Brethren found out that he was here, hired David Wallace to find him. And when David Wallace found him, they said, we need you to hold him and we're going to come and get him. They were basically going to kidnap him. And David Wallace blew the whistle.
Which is like, I don't want to be part of your weird kidnapping activities.
Well, he did a lot of things in his life, but kidnapping Richard Marsh was just a step too far.
Wow.
So that's why.
Who did he blow the whistle on? Like two.
He blew the whistle on him. See, that's the best part is that David Wallace basically blew the whistle on all of the shady shit that he did. Which is a complete, like, no one's ever done that. Like if you look at like a guy named
he was self-rat.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Roger
Did
Stone.
He go to jail for anything he admitted?
Well, that's the thing. The Klondike Papers, which is the dossier of all of his communications, we put that out and we did a whole bunch of stories on that. And no, he didn't, because in order to put him in jail, you would have to put all these other powerful people in jail. You would have to put all these conservative operatives in jail.
So he was like, I did these things, but by the way, so did all these other really powerful people that you're
exactly. So it's really unique.
Yeah, it's really unique. Has he? has he been have people tried to portray him as like a conspiracy theorist or a bit of a kind of an outsider or a fringe person to try and like make it to devalue his experience? Or
yeah, Justin Ling tried that. It didn't work out well for him though, because everything that David Wallace has said has come to pass, right? So, or has been proven to be true when it comes to the things that he did. So, it's
we don't.
but it's still,
I don't know him. Jesse Part doesn't know. I'm assuming who Justin Ling is. Sorry.
I have no idea.
I think he's just works for the CBC now.
Okay.
But, yeah, he came on my show once and ridiculed us for covering the Klondike Papers, and then actually did a segment that was like lifted a story from the Klondike Papers and basically said, wow, this is true, this is crazy, but didn't give credit to the Klondike Papers. So, people are like that in this country. Editors are like that. Like no one wants to touch David Wallace or the Klondike Papers because, they implicate too many powerful people.
So he was going
to touch him in the dark places that he doesn't want to be touched. That's right. Let's do it. Please, let's come on.
Show him on the wallet where he touched you, Johnny. Right inside of him.
Oh God.
So David essentially came forward, blew the whistle because the Plymouth Brethren were going to kidnap someone.
Richard Marsh.
It's kind of mad that when you think that they're operating on that level, and it made someone like for David to go, this is the line in the sand. Like I've done all this stuff, shady stuff behind the scenes for politicians for decades. I assume it sounds like I'm going to trash my entire living, I guess, just by blowing. It's quite extreme to push someone that far who kind of operates in those shadows, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, he's, and it cost him everything. Like, he doesn't make any money doing that anymore because he can't do it. And he just put out the Klondike Papers. I think he sold his first 500 copies last week. So hopefully he's making a little bit of living now, a little bit of scratch. But, he made a good living doing really, kind of shady things for politicians. And now
the kidnapping was the thing that's turned him around.
Yeah, like he was like, I can't do this, right? Like, so he put a stop to it, and then they came after him a little bit, but now he's I don't even know where he lives now. Well, if I did, I wouldn't be telling anyone anyways because they're after him.
Right? Are they actively still after him?
I think so. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I mean, like, he's not the kind of guy that you want out there sharing his secrets, especially if you paid him to do certain things, right?
Let's join this cult, man. You and I, let's do it. Okay.
I got a thing. Do you think we're going to get a phone call from Gerald Chapeau saying,
no,
we're not important enough.
Well, listen, I don't think anyone in the world has covered ex-Plymouth Brethren members more than I have. And I've never gotten anything. I've never gotten a letter. So I don't know if they're just biting.
We're going to get a 1-star review, though. I'll tell you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely a 1-star review. And then also maybe they'll just I don't know, they'll give us some bad reviews. Maybe they'll just promote other podcasts that we're trying to compete with covering the same topic. Maybe they'll wear t-shirts and buy merch from those other shows. At least it'll help other podcasts.
Right.
Maybe. So.
I got to say, James, we've had a number of guests on who usually have something to promote. You're the first guest that we've had on that does have something to promote, but it's not done or ready yet.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm a writer. And I mentioned that.
But you got your podcast too.
My podcast has been in hiatus for a bit, but I'm going to come back in about a week with Casual Friday. I think I'll launch like a week from tomorrow.
What is Casual Friday?
I have a podcast called Casual Friday where I just invite my friends and we just shoot the shit. And that's it.
Nice.
Like, we don't have any topics. It's just, we just come on and we just talk. I usually have Spenny from Kenny versus Spenny on.
Fucking way. What?
Yes,
you know
way.
Spenny? What?
I do.
I love that
Spenny,
show so much.
Spenny's a pal.
Oh, tell him I said hi, please.
Oh, I will. Jesse says hi. You're like, I don't fucking know.
He's a man who doesn't know anything.
Why don't you come on when Spenny's on and you can,
oh my God, I'd love that. Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
I grew up, man. I was in Calgary working at iStock Photo back in 2007, and a coworker came up to me and he dropped a DVD on my desk. I'm like, what's this? He's like, you should borrow this. I'm like, what is this? It's like, it's Kenny versus Spenny, man. Trust me, you're gonna flip out. You're gonna fucking love this show. I'm like, okay. And I bring it home and I put it on. I'm like, what is this show? And I watched every single episode of every season. And I've been like, oh my God. I even watched a little bit of Kenny's weird ass Triumph of the Will afterwards, his spin-off show. But man, I hope they make a return. I really do.
He might be coming out there sometime. So you should look up there because they do an on the road thing, a live thing where they just do a Q&A with a bunch of rowdy Kenny versus
That'd be
Spenny
fucking
fans.
awesome. I'd do that for sure.
I've never seen it.
Spenny does rectal exams.
Oh, good.
Prostate
Yeah,
exams.
that's perfect. That sounds right up my alley. That's great.
It was Jackass before Jackass.
Yeah, right. Well, no, I think Jackass was long before. Yeah, Jackass was long before Kenny versus Spenny.
I don't think
they
so.
had a different name
Oh,
before Jackass.
was it a different name?
Like
So
the
Kenny
90s.
versus Spenny was like Jackass for Canada. In the UK, we had a show
it
called
was
Dirty
just-
Sanchez. I'm serious.
It's awesome. Jesus Christ.
It was like Jackass, but without any of the charm.
Jackass without all the etiquette.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, James, if you want me on your show sometime, you could just explain it to is it Spenny or Kenny? Who is it? It's Spenny, you said.
Spenny.
You just explain it as like, yeah, that's
Kenny's too big to do my
of
show.
course.
But Spenny's all right.
I saw Spenny's his movie, I think he directed, about porn obsession.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I didn't see that.
It was
No, I didn't,
great.
but-
It was honestly very funny and very well done. I was like, yeah.
I joke about it with him. I was like, that was a documentary, right? She's like, no, Jim.
I bet you he loves that. Yeah. James,
He's a good musician too. by the
is
way.
he a musician? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah, he's a
cool.
blues musician.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
I still got no idea who you're talking about, but he sounds
You got to
wonderful.
see the show, man. I've been trying to get you to watch the show, Reese, for so long. I'm telling you.
I'm still new to Canadian things.
We got two Canadian shows that we're really proud of here. That's Kenny versus Spenny and Trailer Park Boys.
Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
Who I'm editing a documentary for SwearNet at the moment, the Trailer Park Boys app. Actually, I just finished episode 8 today of 10 seasons.
For
10
SwearNet.
episodes.
SwearNet's weird, man. I've watched some SwearNet, and it's for like a very special group of fans.
Yeah,
who
and I'm
really
making a
love that
10
stuff.
episode documentary about a senior hockey team for those.
I told you I was in Trailer Park Boys a few times. Yeah, not just as an extra. Like I knew the first assistant director back in the early 2000s, and he'd call me up like, Jesse, what are you doing today? I'm like, nothing. He's like, you want to be on the show? I'm like, sure, fuck it. So I come over and like just stand by the sidelines and eat food and drink, and you just wait for hours. That's all you do as an extra. And then finally, like, okay, we need 15 guys over here wandering around throwing garbage and shit. And I was in like 3 or 4 episodes just as an extra, but one episode I was kind of like singled out, and I had a bag of garbage, and I walked over to Mr. Leahy's trailer and I threw it at his trailer and then banged both my fists on the wall and then looked into his window. And that was back in 2003. And ever since, like once a year, I'll get a call from some friend across Canada. It'd be like 2:00 in the morning. Like, are you in Trailer Park Boys? I'm like, yeah, because they'd just be randomly watching it, and bam, suddenly their friend is on the screen. I thought that was hilarious. I got to direct Mr.
When I moved to Nova Scotia, the only reference I had, they were like, "Hey, Nova Scotia, what's that like?" And I was like, "Trailer Park Boys. It's filmed there." And that was the only cultural touchstone I had for a lot of UK family. Great. Sounds beautiful.
It's like going to the UK and only talking about Benny Hill.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. I've seen the show Benny Hill.
Jay, we've gone off track again, as we do. We're really good at this. Is there any other juicy tidbits that you'd like to talk about?
No,
He's done.
Okay.
He's done. It's been a thorough examination. I was going to say
that was a hard pivot.
Yeah.
It's like back to serious, Plymouth Brethren. No, I think we covered most of it. I mean, listen, like the book is going to be written, I think by I guess it'll be done by February or something like that,
Okay.
and hopefully out by the end of next year. And I'll be having more ex-member guests on Blackballed in the coming weeks.
And just a question: if people are kind of incensed and outraged by, like, is there anything they can do to help? Is there anywhere like where people
That's a
can
great
go to show
question.
support for like survivors or people?
That's
who've got out?
honestly That's a great question, Reese. That's to tie it back to why I don't like watching the news, because there's nothing I can do. So, like, yeah, is there something people can do?
There is. Go check out the Get a Life podcast, which is actually a podcast that was born out of many of the guests that I had on my show, hosted by Cheryl Hope and Richard Marsh. And they talk to ex-members, but there's a way that you can donate to a legal defense fund for a class action lawsuit North American wide against the Plymouth Brethren.
That's huge.
So it was really it just. I like feeling like they credit me for making that happen. I do not. I'm just a guy with a mic. I had people on my show, but the courage came from all of them, and they're really generous to say that. But really, there's so much courage among that community. So forget about me. Go to the Get a Life podcast, and then just find the contact information. Reach out to Cheryl, and you'll be able to donate to their legal fund.
So yeah, any listeners who have gone, holy shit, I didn't know this existed. I'm pissed off. Is my rage impotent? No. Go to Get a Life podcast.
Your rage is standing straight up.
Yeah, exactly.
Mufaka. What is it called again?
Very close. Mufakak.
Mufaka. Thank you so much, James, for your time, and this has been really fun.
Thank you for having me.
We'll
James, can you do us a favor before we go? Can you wish our listeners a wonderful Wafakak in your own words?
I would like to wish every listener out there who's listening a wonderful Wafakak and a side order of STD. How's that?
Yay!
Great.
That was great.
Bye.
Thanks so much for being on the show. That was fun.
Just quieten down, baby.
Per capita export value.
Library. Minister, are you embarrassed by your behavior today?
There's a lot of bleeding hearts around.
Do you have the fortitude or the gonads to stand up and come across here and say that to me, you son of a bitch?
Just watch me.
He certainly went too far, Mr. Speaker, when I saw him stick his tongue out.
Contemptuous disregard. More than a slab of bacon talking here.
The disappointment you also feel is my responsibility.
I lost my temper. What is the nature of your thoughts?
The word was FART.